Like I said, I started doing drugs at the age of 11. So I was super young. I did not grow up in a home with God. In fact, when I got saved, I identified as atheist. I, both my biological father and my stepdad who adopted me were alcoholics. So, and a lot of people in my family were into addiction. So I was doing what I knew.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Health Talks with Ernestine. My name is Ernestine of Ernestine Hopkins Consulting. And for those of you who have never met me before, I am called to be a voice for the voiceless until they can speak. I believe that you will live again, you will laugh again, you will love again, you will breathe again, you will speak again. And God has called me to remind you of those things until you believe them. So I do this by being a certified women's empowerment coach. And what that means is I help women to uncover the blocks that have stopped them from becoming successful, and then I empower them to achieve success. And for those women that find that trauma is a block for them, I'm certified in trauma debriefing. I'm so excited to be the producer of a series that will be appearing on YouTube called Redemption Train. And it's based on my book, Saving Myself from Me. So if you have not had a chance to get your copy of the re-release, Saving Myself from Me, the link is in the chat and in the description, so you can order that today. All proceeds will go towards the filming of Redemption Train. So like I said, Redemption Train is based on my book, but with a twist. It is not exactly the same. So the main character in the book, her name is Ashley, and she struggles with low self-esteem, and she's bullied, and she battles depression. And we go on this journey with her as she navigates these adversities. But Redemption Train is not only about Ashley, but it's about the girl who bullies her. And it's also about their mothers, because girls who haven't healed most definitely become women who haven't healed. So in all, Redemption Train is an emotional and thrilling story about the lives of two mothers, their daughters, and their struggles that reveal that their families are connected in more ways than one. So this will definitely be a must watch, okay? Like I said, it's not exactly the same. There's some twists and turns in there. You want to find out how those families are connected, which it's not something that is revealed in the book. So you definitely want to make sure that you subscribe to the Redemption Train YouTube channel to keep up to date on this project, okay? So the link for you to subscribe is in the chat and the description. So I just want to take a moment and share a clip from the teaser with you guys, because we did release the teaser on YouTube last year. So weird to say last year, but it's January now. So it was last year whenever we released that on YouTube. So just a quick trigger warning. If you are triggered by anything that is discussed in this clip or anything that is showed in this clip, I highly encourage you to connect with a licensed professional counselor so they can help you process the event that's caused you trauma, help you reflect on its impact, and also teach you how to self-regulate so that you can stay in the driver's seat of the car, as opposed to that trauma jumping into the driver's seat and controlling your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. Okay, so let's check out this clip.
Back to me. She's spoiled and she needs to be corrected and she needs to be punished. That's her problem. No, her problem is she needs to be disciplined. That's her problem and that's your problem. You need to be disciplined. Like mother, like daughter. That's the problem. And I'm sick of having to say it. I'm going to have to do something that you want. So I'm going to do something about it. Yes, I'm going to exercise that. No, I don't give a goddamn. You can't take you nowhere. No, you're going to learn how to obey it.
You're hideous! You're alone, and you always will be. No one wants you, no one cares.
Wow, that was absolutely amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the creator and producer. It really is amazing because I know the impact that it will have on people across the world. So if you have not had a chance to check out the full teaser, the full video, it is available on the Redemption Train YouTube channel. Again, the link is in the chat. And the full series has not been filmed yet. So if you want to contribute towards the filming of Redemption Train to help us further our mission to empower girls and women to overcome adversities and trauma and become the best version of themselves, you can contribute today. The link for that is in the chat and in the description. Or if you know any organizations or groups that have any interest in the subject matter of Redemption Train, please send their information to me or pass my information along to them. That's in the chat, in the description also. My email is ernestinehopkins@gmail.com and my website is ernestinehopkins.com. We're going to be talking about low self-esteem, depression, suicide, abuse, substance abuse, trauma, mental health, healing, overcoming growth, all of the things that can help people become the best version of themselves. So again, you can send their information to me or send my information to them, either way. And so today's giveaway is for an autographed copy of the re-release Saving Myself from Me. So you have to make sure that you email me at ernestinehopkins@gmail.com. Even if you registered, make sure you email me today by 7:30 p.m. because in order to be eligible for the prize, you had to have attended the event during the premiere today, January 28th. So email me by 7:30 p.m., send me your name and mailing address, and then 2 people will be randomly selected from the emails that I receive. Okay, so without any further ado, I am so incredibly pumped and excited to introduce my special guest to you all. Her name is Natalia Duran. Welcome, Natalia.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. You know, I am just so incredibly thankful for you to be here today. As you know, today's topic is healing and overcoming. And so, Natalia, I have to tell you, I've been doing health talks for about 10 months now. And out of all the health talks that I've done, this one by far was the hardest one for me to move forward with, to the point to where I went to counseling to make sure I could handle the conversation due to grief. As I started, or as I shared with you before, about 7 years ago, I lost my sister. And the last time we spoke, I was trying to encourage her. Like, I remember our last conversation. She was very unsure. She had lost hope. She was battling depression. I could just hear it in her voice and in the words that she was saying. She just had a hard time seeing past her pain and what she had experienced. She had a hard time seeing past what she could physically see, what she, could see happening in her life. And to numb her pain, she did do drugs. And when the drugs were off, the realities were still there of being in a tough situation and not having peace. The reality of being raped as a young girl was still there. The person who raped her told her, "You do this or else I'm going to get your little sister." So she kept the secret to herself to protect me, and suffered in silence. And she passed away, unfortunately. She had a heart condition. She passed away before she had the opportunity to heal emotionally. And so today's discussion hits so close to home for me because addiction was part of her story. And discussing why addiction was part of her story and part of many people's stories makes this health talk so meaningful to me. So again, I just want to start by thanking you for being a part of my most important discussion to date. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. It's truly an honor. I'm glad I'm able to be on here today.
Awesome. So let's start with this. Tell me a little bit about you. Like, where are you from? What are you passionate about?
Okay. So I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah.
Okay.
I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma originally in 2012 with an attempt to try to get off drugs. I thought if I just kind of got away from everything, I could. It didn't last very long. I was only here a short period, about a year and a half, went back to Utah, and then I came back again in 2016. So I've lived here since then. I'm very family oriented. I really love my family. Pretty much anything that we do, I love, I thrive on. I had a lot of years that I missed out on, fellowship with them and time spent with them. And so that's like my passion, being a mother, being a daughter, being a sister. And I'm passionate about Jesus. My life is centered around the church, around ministry, around God. So I do a lot with that. I do a lot of mentoring people that have been through similar things as me. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. And it's so awesome to hear that you're doing that now. People need to hear your voice. So I love that. There's different factors that can lead to a person abusing drugs. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, for teenagers, oftentimes they're curious because others are doing it and they want to kind of fit in. And then before they know it, in some cases, they are addicted, you know. And then for adults, according to their website, it talks about how some people do it because they want to perform better in school or at work, while others, they just want to feel good. They want to stop feeling bad, whether they're feeling hopeless or depressed or anxious or panic attacks, or maybe something happened in their childhood that they, you know, they're hoping that the drugs will kind of numb that pain from what they're feeling. So I want to know from you, what was your journey with addiction?
Yeah. So mine was kind of a mix of, you know, what you said, like curiosity and then also childhood.
Okay.
When I first started doing drugs, it was curiosity. I was already hanging out with, you know, the wrong crowd. So I was being introduced to cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana. So at first it was just a curiosity thing. But then when I realized that it numbed the pain from my childhood, that's when I really latched onto it. So I started doing drugs at a really young age. And then continued throughout my, you know, older years, the childhood trauma continued. So it was a constant hutch to numb what I walked through, what I went through as a young child.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes me think about, I used to teach for a while before I moved from Texas, taught middle school. And I used to bring in this pastor who used to do drugs. And he talked about how he started young also, and how he was first introduced to marijuana. And, you know, he said that he would always hear people say, oh, marijuana is not that bad. But for him, he said it was a gateway drug that kind of opened the door for him to try more things when the marijuana no longer was doing what it did for him before.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's exactly how it happened with me too. My dad was an alcoholic, so we always had a lot of alcohol in the house, and we had access to it. I mean, and cigarettes, and they would just keep stocks and stocks of it in the house. So we would take alcohol without them ever even noticing. But that's how it was for me. Marijuana and alcohol were my gateway. And I remember even hearing that in programs in school, and my parents would even tell me that, even though they did it, like they would tell me that. And I'd be, oh, not for me. But before I knew it, it led into more and more things, because he's right. It gets to a point where you feel like it doesn't numb the pain anymore and you need something greater.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, for those of you that are considering taking drugs to numb your pain and to take away how you're feeling, maybe you've said before, oh, I can take free drugs because I don't have an addictive personality. You know, I've heard people say that. I don't have an addictive personality. That's them. That's not me. I'm all right, you know. And while that may be true, that in the past you did not have an addictive personality, let me further explain how drugs work and how it affects your brain. Drug abuse changes your brain. They excite the part of your brain that makes you feel good. But after you take a drug for a while, your brain gets used to it, right? And then you need to take more of the drug to get that same good feeling. But soon your brain and your body must have the drug just to feel normal. And as I said before, drug abuse changes your brain. So you may feel sick or anxious or irritable without the drug. So you no longer have that good feeling that you had when you first used the drug, right? And because drug abuse just changes your brain, you can become addicted, and it's not easy to stop for everyone. And that's why prioritizing your mental health is so important to help prevent you from making decisions that you might regret. So it's important to recognize any warning signals in yourself that show that you may be moving in that direction. So, Natalia, when you look back and reflect on before you became addicted to drugs, were there any warning signs that you can now recognize were there before addiction came into play?
I mean, I was such a young age, but I had a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma. I felt unheard, and I felt like I didn't really have people in my corner. Like I almost like I felt like it didn't matter what I did, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so even after I started doing drugs, it was like people didn't even notice that I was, or even cared that I did. So, yeah, as far as like warning signs, I would say probably my behavior. I began to isolate even more. I began to, like I said, hang out with the wrong crowd. I was hanging out with really crazy friends. And even my mother was concerned about the friends that I was hanging out with, you know, and my desires completely changed. I
Okay.
quit dance. I quit doing things that I used to like to do before.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that. That makes sense. And you know, if you're someone watching and you kind of recognize some of the same warning signs in yourself, and it might be a good idea just to maybe try to get help or talk to someone about how you're feeling, you know, to kind of get on the other side of it beforehand, basically. You know, Natalia, I was thinking earlier, it is so disheartening to see the things that people say on social media about people who are currently addicted to drugs. I don't know if you've ever seen that or if you're good about scrolling past it,
Yeah.
but I have accidentally landed upon it a few times and it just has broken my heart. Like recently, there was somebody who posted a video of a woman. She was clearly under the influence of something. And she had on high heels and these itty bitty shorts, and her shirt didn't completely cover her stomach. So her stomach was kind of hanging over her shorts, and she was walking. And again, she was clearly under the influence of something. And the person posted it, and people were just laughing like it was so funny. And I was just like, why is this funny? Why are we now laughing at people's pain, you know? And then you read the comments and they say stuff like, well, that's what they get for doing drugs in the first place. And I don't feel sorry for them. And I hope they get what they deserve. They're selfish. I would never do that. Just reading those things just break my heart. Do you ever see stuff like that?
I do. Yeah, quite often. I see people really bashing that, you know, like you said, the fact that they should have never done drugs.
Yeah.
And it is super disheartening. Yes, doing drugs is a choice, but most people who do drugs do it not with the intent of numbing something they walked through, numbing pain, self-medicating for mental illness. A lot of times it's people not knowing how to walk through what they're walking through, and they're finding something that gets rid of the torture, gets rid of the mind torture, the pain, the trauma. And so, you know, and what I compare it to is, you know, stroke, heart attack, cancer. Those sometimes are rooted in the way we eat, in the stress level we allow ourselves to get, you know, our own decisions. But you never hear somebody on social media saying, well, you had a stroke because you didn't eat healthy, or you had a stroke because you didn't get enough rest. And so, you know, when disease comes from decisions that we've made, it's still something that somebody needs help getting out of. So yes, it's very disheartening, and I see it way more often than I'd like to see it.
I just want to encourage people to live a life led by love, compassion, and empathy. You know, it honestly doesn't matter what you would or wouldn't do, because people say that, well, I wouldn't do that. It doesn't matter what you would or wouldn't do, because their story and what led them to make the decision that they made has nothing to do with you or what you would or wouldn't do. You know, don't make this about you, because it's not about you, you know? And like you said, you know, when they say they should have never done it in the first place, I can't speak for everybody, but what I can say is, as a person who has had extreme anxiety, who has had very, very, very bad panic attacks, and who has had the experience of even hearing a demonic voice in my ear screaming, telling me in my moment of panic, you're not going to be okay. What I can tell you is that in moments like that, for some people, it's difficult to be rational, because in that moment, you're having all these irrational thoughts rushing at you, and it is overwhelming, you know? So what helped me in those moments was God, and prioritizing my mental health. They saved me. God, and prioritizing my mental health. But, you know, different factors can affect your response in those moments, like your current mental health, your past or current trauma, like you mentioned, your coping skills that you've already learned, or those that you have not learned. And like I said, for some people, they turn to drugs to quiet down all of that emotional noise. And before they know it, they're addicted. Does it make their decisions right? No. But can I set aside my opinions and what I feel I wouldn't do so that I can empathize? Absolutely, yes. And I encourage everyone else to do the same. I know you said that Jesus and, you know, ministry is important to you. So can you explain how God has played a role in your journey of overcoming?
Yes, absolutely. So, like I said, I started doing drugs at the age of 11. So I was super young. I did not grow up in a home with God. In fact, when I got saved, I identified as atheist.
Mm.
I, my biological father and my stepdad who adopted me were alcoholics. So, and a lot of people in my family were into addiction. So I was doing what I knew. I didn't know God. I didn't know a lifestyle of going to church. I didn't know what he could do for me, anything like that, until I moved to Tulsa the first time in 2012. And I came still not knowing God, but I came with the plan to get clean off of drugs. I thought if I removed the people and places that I could get clean. Well, the Lord knew what he was doing. And so I worked a job as a manager at Qdoba by Victory Christian Center. It's a church here locally. And he began to surround me with Christians, and it irritated me. Like, when I tell you, it was so frustrating to me. I had people who would, just plant seeds. They would encourage me. They saw not who I was in the moment, but they saw the God in me. They saw the potential in who I could be, and they loved me from that aspect. They didn't love me from where I was at, even though I was still bound up. I was still struggling with drugs. I would drink while at work. I was just a hot mess, but they just continue to keep pouring into me. Well, I still didn't get clean. I still didn't give my life to the Lord. I went back to Utah and went back on the streets, full blown on drugs again. But those seeds were planted. So every time I would get high, I would start to hear these people's voices, and I would hear the things they said about me, that I was loved, that, I was worthy, that God loved me, that he had a greater plan for me. And in 2015, I decided to come back to Tulsa again, still not saved, but I came back and I got into Bible college. And I got into Bible college because my mom gave me an ultimatum. I was living on the streets, and she said, you can come back to Tulsa, and if you enroll in Bible college, I will allow you to live with me, but that's the only way. I wouldn't go to rehab. I tried rehab. I was on methadone at the time, so I had gotten off heroin. I smoked meth in the hotel before we came here in December 2015. And that was the last time I did meth, but I was still taking pills. I still drank. I still smoked weed. I went into Bible college. Still, I would smoke weed, drink at Bible college. I was drunk all through the time I was in Bible college, but the seeds kept being planted, and I would see other Christians, and I knew that I wanted something different, but I didn't know how to get it. I thought I would never, I was so discouraged. I was hopeless. I thought I would never be able to live like they did. Well, in 2017, the Lord spoke to me, and he said, you have to give up those substances and trust me. You have to trust that I will do it for you. So I surrendered my life to him. I got water baptized. I was filled with the Holy Ghost, and I gave up every substance. And when I tell you I was supernaturally delivered, I did not ever pick up those substances again. I'm still, to this day, over 5 years clean off of the rest of 7 years off heroin and meth, 5 years off of weed, alcohol, and pills. And it was a supernatural thing, because I just took a step of obedience and said, okay, God, I trust you. I gave my life to him, and I have not ever picked up any substance again. So
that's amazing. And you hear
all of it to God. Sorry.
No, you're good. I mean, that's amazing, because you hear people say, well, God isn't enough. I beg to differ. I know for some people, their path is they go to rehab and that works for them. And some people that doesn't work for them, but God is enough.
God is enough. And I will say this, God is enough, but it takes action on your part too. You can't lay up in the bed and keep smoking out of a pipe and expect God to do the work for you. You have to be willing to take the pipe and throw it in the trash. You have to be willing to take the alcohol and pour it down the sink. And allow God to come in and move. But he is more than enough. I was in rehab. I went to jail. I've been institutionalized. I can't even tell you how many different times, different rehab centers, and none of it worked for me. It was not until I allowed God, I moved out of my way and allowed God in, that something changed.
Amen. So one of the things I shared with you was how I carried the weight of feeling like I could have or should have done more, right? What do you say to that? And how do you feel family and friends can best help their loved ones struggling with addiction?
Yeah, that's a great question, because, I don't know who suffers more in addiction, that person who's doing the drugs or the family member, truly. But I can say for me, my family enabled me for years. They enabled me by always having things available to me and for me when I was on drugs. The people who do drugs love drugs. It numbs what they're trying to numb. It does what they want it to do. What they don't like is the lifestyle that comes with it. You cannot maintain being on drugs with the lifestyle that comes with it. So the manipulating, the lying, the cheating, the stealing, that all is part of addiction to maintain that lifestyle.
Okay.
For me, I had to hit rock bottom. And in order for me to hit rock bottom, my mom began to get involved in groups where she had other people that were dealing with the same things that began to start speaking some things to her. And she began to start pulling back. She was calling rehabs on my behalf and trying to get me into rehab. She called so many, I mean, she would spend hours on the phone, all different states, all different areas, trying to get me into rehab. And there was a young man that said to her one day, "Let me just ask you a question. Why is it that you are calling for rehab for her and not her?" And it was like a light went off in my mom's head, even going through all of these groups and everything, and people saying, "You can't do it for your daughter." It's not until she hits her rock bottom. It's not until she's ready to do it that she's actually going to do it. Drug addicts are manipulators. That's part of the lifestyle. You have to manipulate to survive. And so they will manipulate you. We as drug addicts will manipulate people into thinking that we want something different. But until we really truly want something different, nothing different is going to change. So a light went off in my mom's head and she began to pull off. She still loved me through the eyes of Jesus. She still encouraged me to get clean, but she stopped funding my addiction. She stopped buying my cigarettes. She stopped allowing me to have a place to stay. And as a mother, to say, "I'm sorry, you're going to have to stay on the streets," I can't imagine facing that decision. But for me, it was not until my family did that I was ready to give up that lifestyle, that I felt like my rock bottom had been hit. I walked out of a hospital room with nothing but a gown on. I didn't have shoes. I didn't have a bra. I literally walked out braless of a hospital, and none of my family would pick me up. And at the time I was devastated. I was hurt. But now I see they were doing it for my good.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. It makes me think about someone who, you know, they're struggling right now because they had done something similar where they kind of backed off. And during that time of them backing off, their family member did end up having a drug overdose. So they kind of beat themselves up saying, "Well, if I hadn't have backed off, you know, that wouldn't have happened. If I would have just kept, you know, providing them with a place and doing this and that, then they would have had a safe place and that wouldn't have happened." What do you say to that?
You couldn't have changed it. You couldn't have changed it, because even if you wouldn't have backed off and you would have continued to keep giving that for them, it then would have later happened down the road. Again, it's not until the person is ready and willing to do something different that something different is going to happen. Allowing that space for them to stay in that lifestyle is only prolonging the addiction.
Yeah.
Someone losing their life in addiction is a very unfortunate part about it.
Yeah.
There's only 3 ways that addiction ends, and it's either death, jail, or getting clean. That's the only way that it ends. But you can walk some, you know, that saying they say you can walk a horse to the trough, but you cannot force it to drink. If you walk the individual to the trough and they don't drink and they die of dehydration, you cannot hold yourself responsible for that.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. So what advice would you give to those struggling in the areas that you overcame?
I would say, give your life to the Lord. Give your life to the Lord. That's number one. The Lord is who is going to see you through it. There are some people need rehab. There are some faith-based rehabs that are important. I'm not talking down on rehab whatsoever. If somebody feels led to go to rehab or feels like that's what they need, definitely, but God's got to be incorporated with it. For me, I got involved in several areas of my church, and I refused to listen to the lies that just because I was still bound and just because I was still jacked up and messed up, that I wasn't able to be loved. And so I would go to different prayer groups. I would go to church. I would go around different small groups with people, even though I was still on drugs, because it just, like I said before, it just continued to plant those seeds in me. And so I give this advice to people that I mentor all the time. If you're living a life that you don't like to live, do everything that you don't want to do. Everything that you say, I don't want to do that, do it. If you don't want to go to a prayer group, go to the prayer group. And I remember when I first got clean, the Lord spoke to me and he said, if you give even a 10th of the energy into your walk with me that you did while you were in addiction, you will be a completely different person. I said, all right, I can do that. I remember walking in the snow. I remember dope sick, walking, like whatever I had to do to get high. I would go in the middle of the night. I mean, the things I did when I was on drugs, unbelievable. I'm like, all right, if I can just put a 10th of the work, all right, I can do it. So switch that. And any drug addict knows drug addiction is hard work. It's hard work. And you can switch that hard work into living a different lifestyle. It's not going to happen overnight. It's progression, not perfection. Don't beat yourself up, but progress. Put one foot in front of the other. And like I said, do everything opposite of what you want to do.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. I'm going to incorporate that in my own life.
Look.
When you were talking, Philippians chapter 4, verse 7 came to my mind. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And I hear, I've talked to people and they're like, well, I started doing drugs because I lost my peace. The peace from God, I don't feel it, I feel like God has abandoned me and I don't feel God's peace, but God's peace is always there. I just want to put that out there. It's always there. It's like a constant stream. It is always there. Peace doesn't walk away from us. We walk away from it.
That's it.
So you have to fight for your peace, the things that are making you feel like, okay, I need to do drugs to numb the pain. You need to fight for your peace. Fight those thoughts that try to steal your peace and your joy and your hope. Speak life to those thoughts. Tell those thoughts the truth. Hold your peace. I have to do that all the time. Just the other day, I woke up and this random thought, because you can't control the thoughts that pop in your head, right? But this random thought just popped in my head about how I wasn't going to be able to do all the things that I see myself doing. And I didn't deal with the thought. I just kind of ignored it. But then later the thought came back. You can't ignore those thoughts that come in. Deal with each thought as they come in. If you don't have time in that moment, then later on be like, you know what, earlier I had a thought that I need to deal with. And you talk back to that thought. If somebody is coming towards me, trying to attack me, I'm going to defend myself, guard myself. I may try to hit them back, whatever it is in that moment. Same thing with those thoughts. Guard yourself, fight those thoughts back, So I talked back to that thought when it came back to me. It was like, no, I'm going to do everything that God said that I am going to do. You are a lie. Like, I talk back to it. Does it sound crazy? Yes. Do I care? No. Fight.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, affirmations and declarations are vital in life. I can remember when I first got saved, I was like a child. I had all over my room, all of these papers I had taken and I had drawn in different colors of marker on these bright papers I had taped all over my bedroom, even on my ceiling, to where I had scripture. I had things that I spoke over me that I still did not believe. I would go in the mirror and I'd tell myself, I'm worthy, I'm beautiful, I'm gonna live a good life, God is for me, and I did not believe those things, but I did it. I spoke it over to myself, because Paul talks about going through the process of renewing our mind when we get saved. And I had to do that in order to renew my mind. Now I don't turn to drugs when I get frustrated. Now I don't turn to drugs when I get anxious, but I still have the moments of doing that. And what I do is I get in the word and I get in prayer, and I respond with I respond with the things that God says about me, not that the devil says about me, or not even sometimes what I say about me or what other people say about me. So that's good.
Yeah, I love that. And that for some people, because some people might be watching this and they might be like, well, you know what? I hear what you're saying, but it's not easy for me to fight. I don't know how to fight. You may need to connect with, like she said, someone at church, or connect with a counselor to help you learn how to fight, to walk with you. You don't have to do it alone, and do it because you are worth it. Yes, and I can guarantee you, Natalia, there's somebody watching right now that's like, okay, yeah, I hear her story, and yes, she was able to do it, but I'm not strong enough to overcome addiction. Can you take a moment and talk directly to that person?
Yes, absolutely. I believed those lies when I first got saved. I believed those lies when I was trying to get clean. And I would battle those things with addiction. Isolation is the number one tool that the devil uses to try to keep you bound. Community is vital. Being transparent is vital. Being open is vital. If you begin to start getting involved around people, around believers, you may not believe it at first. You may have to look in the mirror and feel like you are lying to yourself, saying, I am worth it. But you are worth it. And continue to speak that over yourself, and continue to allow other people to speak that into you until you get to a place that you believe it. And you will get to a place where you say, I don't care what anybody else says about me. I don't care what the devil says about me. I don't care who I used to be. I know who I am now, and I am worth it. And I'm here to tell you, from somebody who has suffered from mental illness, from somebody who believed they were nothing. I believed I wasn't worth anything more than laying on a grass in a park because of the things I had done. And God has delivered me from that. He has healed me from that. And I now today live a good life, and I believe that I am worth it. And I declare right now for you that you will believe that you are worth it too.
I do want to say or mention some of the things that they mentioned that you have to do after you've stopped using drugs. So I'll quote those verbatim from their website real quick. One is you have to relearn how to live without using drugs, because you're not going to live the same way that you did before. So you have to work on the problems your drug use caused your family, your job, your friends, and your money. 3, you have to stay away from people you use drugs with in the places where you used. You're not going to be able to hang out in those same areas. Next, you have to learn what makes you want to use drugs again, your triggers, so you can avoid or work on those things. And then you also may need treatment for the problems that led you to drug use, such as depression, anxiety, or other mental health problems. So, Natalia, did you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So in the chat, in the description, I'm going to add a few resources. If someone is like, okay, I don't know where to start. I do have a local church I want to connect with. Are there any other resources out there? I am going to add those resources there. The first one is 1-800-662-HELP. It's a confidential, free 24 hours a day, 365 days a year information service that's in both English and Spanish. It's for individuals and family members facing mental and or substance use disorders. This service provides referrals also to local treatment facilities, support groups, and community-based organizations. Because I know some people say, well, I don't have the money for a fancy facility. Well, they also have community-based organizations. So I'm going to put that number in the chat and the description of this video. I'm also going to add the website for the online treatment locator, which is findtreatment.samhsa.gov. And then I'm also going to add, you can send your zip code via text message to 435-748 to find help near you. And the last thing that I'm going to add is Psychology Today's website, where they can help you with finding a therapist. So I'll just put that link. You can click on it and you can put in your zip code and it'll show you therapists in your area. And if you would like a faith-based therapist, which is what honestly changed my life, it wasn't just any old therapist Ernestine went to. It was faith-based, where when I told her I was hearing a demonic voice in my ear that told me, you're not going to be okay. She dropped everything and we started praying in that moment, so having that type of support And having that community, as Natalia mentioned, is so vital and so important. So check out those links in those numbers that I'm going to add there if you're needing that support. Okay. So Natalia, how can our viewers stay connected with you?
So the best way is through Facebook. I'm Natalia Duran. Usually my profile picture has my purple hair. That's how I'm known by many people. So you can add me on Facebook, message me on Facebook. I am not a counselor, but I do mentoring with people, and I'm very familiar with our community. I serve a lot in our community. I've mentored a lot of people. I've been very involved in a lot of different ministries and churches here in the community. So I even do have some limited faith-based rehab connections. So definitely reach out, even if it's just questions. I have people ask me questions from, how do I pray? How do I read my Bible? I'm on meth and I can't get off. I have a sexual addiction. I mean, from one end to the other, I have people reach out to me, even if it's something that you feel isn't significant. Reach out. If I don't have the answer, I'll connect you with somebody who does.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to include the link for her Facebook also in the chat and the description. Okay, guys. So Natalia, thank you so much for joining me for today's Health Talks. People having the opportunity to hear your story is imperative. You know, it's one thing for me to share my experience walking along someone who was experiencing drug addiction, but it's totally different hearing you talk about it because you overcame. And I don't know about you, but I've had moments where I'm like, other people have podcasts, I don't need to do one too. I mean, what difference could I make when there's other people who are doing the same thing? I just want to tell you that there is somebody out there who have heard people's story before, but something about you is going to connect with them, So keep going. I encourage you to keep going, keep speaking, keep mentoring, keep doing what you're doing. Everything you experienced was not in vain. God is using it, and people's lives are being transformed because of you. So keep going.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see what else you do. You're amazing. I can't say it enough.
I was just saying today, because last night me and my fiance were talking about some things that I used to do. And, when I first got saved, I had a mentor tell me, you're going to look back on the Natalia you used to be, and you're going to say, I don't even know who that was. And really ghetto at the time. I was very hood. I was like, oh, you don't know me? I'll always remember where I come from, all this. But it's true. I look back on that person today, and I have to pull my brain out and remember who she used to be. I'm like, help me, Lord. Did I really used to do those things? So transformation is real. It's real. And we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So thank you for your encouragement. Sometimes I'll hold back on sharing my testimony. Sometimes I'll hold back on saying things. Because I'm like, a lot of people know it, but it's always in those moments where I hold back, and then I end up saying something, and the Lord's like, see, I told you I needed it. And not only for the other person, but for ourselves. I remember feeling so shameful when I first came into the church and not wanting to tell people what I had walked through because I felt broken. And the moment I began to release that out is the moment freedom began to take place in my life. So thank you again for the encouragement. And I encourage you as well. There are a lot of podcasts. There are a lot of shows, but this individual one, you individually are going to reach people that wouldn't have been reached otherwise.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I want to add one thing, because you just encouraged me. I was very reluctant to share that part of my sister's story because the last time we spoke, I had written my book already at that time. And she was like, you better not write a book about me, because she was ashamed, like you just said, ashamed and embarrassed, and her life wasn't going the way that she always saw and dreamed about. Right. But I feel like she's ready to speak, if that makes sense, that she would want other people to hear her story and to, learn the things that she didn't have the opportunity to learn. So again, thank you so much for your encouragement. Thank you for being here. I can't stop saying that you're amazing. I believe that 100%.
Because of God, I'm telling you.
But thank you again. I will talk to you later.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys. So thank you so much for joining me for today's Health Talks. Health Talks is every fourth Saturday at 6 p.m. So the next one is already scheduled. It is on February 25th at 6 p.m. We will be discussing healing and overcoming grief with my special guest, Pastor Lisa Duhart. You can register for that free event today. The link is in the chat and in the description. And if you register, you will be entered into the drawing twice, but only if you attend the premiere of the event. And so for today's drawing, just a very quick reminder, for the autograph of re-release copy of Saving Myself from Me, you have to email me today by 7:30 p.m. Today's January 28th by 7:30 p.m. My email address is in the chat. That just lets me know when you email me that you actually attended during the premiere of the event. So send me your name and your mailing address, and 2 people will be randomly selected from the emails that I do receive. And so today's Health Talks will live on the Ernestine Hopkins Consulting YouTube channel. So make sure you share today's video with your friends and your family, because someone needs to hear what we talked about today. And don't forget, the weekly videos are postponed until further notice while we focus on Saving Myself from Me and the filming of Redemption Train. So again, those links, if you want to order the book, if you want to watch the teaser, or if you want to contribute towards the filming of Redemption Train, all of those links are in the description and the chat. So make sure you also subscribe and hit that bell notification so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded. So I just want to leave you with a very, very, very quick word of encouragement before you go. No matter what you've done or been through, you will overcome every obstacle that stands in your way. And if you are a person who has used drugs before, or if you're currently addicted to drugs, despite what society tries to tell you, you are still worthy and you still deserve to be free mentally and emotionally. So it's time for you to start believing again. Believe that you are worthy because God says that you are. So fight and hold on to God's peace, because you will live again. You will laugh again. You will love again. You will breathe again. You will speak again. And as I always say, you can and you will.